Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Webinar Wednesday. I'm Jaylene Ippolito. I'm the marketing specialist here at Project Line, and I'll be moderating today's session, kind of watching for questions that you might have. Today we have our relationship manager, Rob Peterson-Wakeman, here to show you some of the new super user functions in the latest version of Business One. And I'll just make a note that if you have questions at any point throughout the session, you can type them into the question panel on the right side of your screen, and we'll leave some time at the end to go over any questions that you have. So Rob, I'll pass it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Jaylene. So we'll just give things a moment, Jaylene. I'll switch over control so that I can share my screen. I might be able to do that myself. There we go, thank you. Wonderful. Here we go. All right, and Jaylene, I just want to confirm that you can see my presentation.
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay, good. So today's session is on, I guess what we've chosen to do is we've chosen to show you a few tidbits from some of the new functionality in version 9.1, and we've sort of bundled it together under the idea of some power user tools. So some of these areas are areas that you may be familiar with, like, you know, the authorization group or the authorization area, or the like, or, you know, the ability to do some of these things. And some of these areas is really, you know, kind of enhancing the functionality that was previously there. So on the agenda today, we're going to look at 4 things. We're going to look at the new ability to do authorization groups, and you know, this is a convenience feature that was added at the request of many users who, you know, they thought, well, the existing authorization functionality is okay, but it would be, hey, it'd be really great if you could sort of do groups, and then, you know, as new employees start, we could slot those people into, you know, say the sales authorization group, because so many organizations have groups of similar authorization levels, like sales or purchasing or finance or what have you. So we'll see a bit of that. The other thing we're going to see is a hide functions ability now in 9.1, and this ability was added so that you can hide kind of major sets of functions, and I think it'll probably make sense once we start looking at the demonstration. So it's not just hiding, say, one specific menu item, it's hiding a complete set of functions, because some functions, like let's say for instance MRP or units of measure, and there's a few others, they actually have hooks into various parts of the system, and this hide function allows you to sort of hide all of those hooks at the same time. The next one would be the UI edit mode. So for those of you that you know, might not be familiar, in 9.1 SAP added the ability to edit the interface of a number of different standard forms. So we're going to see an example of using the UI edit mode and what can be accomplished. Some of these tools, particularly UI edit, it's you know, this is a function that you've been able to do with other functionality extenders like Core Suite, Country Package, or our BOEM B1 usability package. And there are still things that, say, something like the BOEM package will do that the UI edit mode won't do. But as far as sort of moving fields, hiding fields, you know, moving a user-defined field around, you know, those are all things that you can kind of do within standard functionality now. The last function that we're going to see is Business One's ability to sort of copy some external data and paste it into the system. And I'm going to show you a use case for that, you know, how you would potentially use it. I sort of say, you know, copy and paste is a very quick and dirty mechanism for integration. Okay, so we'll go to our first topic, being authorization groups. So really what authorization groups is all about is, you know, kind of faster management. It's a convenience feature for setting up groups of for, you know, like users that are like each other, you know, like say all sales users or all shipping receiving users or all accounts receivable users. They have the same level of authorization. So instead of, you know, setting up Rob or setting up Jaylene as the accounts receivable user, let's set up an accounts receivable group, and then we can slot Rob, Jaylene, or whoever else we want to into that group. Okay, so we're going to flip over to the demonstration. All right, and I just want to confirm that everybody can see the demo environment.
Yes, we can, Rob.
Certainly, if you know, if you're having trouble with seeing anything or audio, please feel free to leave Jaylene a chat message, and she's sort of watching out for that. Okay. I've also enabled my webcam, but if you'd like, you should have the ability to minimize it on your side, or make it small, or make it disappear. So feel free to do that if you want a little more real estate for viewing. Okay, so here we have Business One in front of us, and we're going to go into the administration area. So again, as a power user, you would have access to this area, but depending on your authorization level, you may or may not. So if this is new to you, if you've never seen these menus before, you know, let us know if you've got access to these areas. But within administration, and then system initialization, and then authorizations, we've got general authorizations. So I'm going to open that screen, and I'm also going to open this screen called Authorization Groups. I'm just going to set it off to the side for a moment. So within the authorization screen, we have what we had before. So we have a list of the users on the left-hand side here, and if we click on Donna as a user, you can see here's our authorization level, and we can set them as we have before. But you notice that there's also a tab here called Groups. And if we click over to the groups, you can see there's a number of authorization groups that are available. These groups are set up using this screen. So we've got a finance group, a sales group, a purchase and inventory. I'm just going to create on the fly here quickly. We'll call this group number 5, and we'll call this the AR group. So that's how you add your authorization group. Sorry, I did that wrong here. We'll just say AR group. All right, it must automatically gives it a code. All right, there we go. So we got our AR group. So whatever group you want. Now, if we refresh that view, you can see that now the AR group is in there, and we're able to choose what authorizations the AR group has. You know, by going through the lists. If we expand the authorizations in this area, we can kind of drill down to certain bits. And if you're not familiar with how to set up authorization, there's some good training videos on the Business One Academy. If you'd like to view those, can always steer you in that direction. Okay, so we've set up our AR group. We've got our authorization levels, and now within authorization groups here, we can also specify what users are part of this group. So, you know, in this case, we want to include Donna Brown in the authorization group. We want to include, you know, a couple other people like John Patterson. We can add that list of users here. All right. Lastly, what I want to show with respect to authorization groups is if we are adding a new user to the system. So if I go into administration and set up general users, and I'm adding a new user to the system. So let's say we're going to add Jaylene to the system. So we're going to say this is Jaylene's code, and we go ahead and we add the other information. Notice that there's also a field net here now called authorization groups, and if I click on that and add Jaylene to the, I can add Jaylene to as many groups as I want, but I'm just adding her to the AR group for now, and I'll add Jaylene's user profile. So if we refresh this AR group, you can see Jaylene's been added there in the authorization group. You still have also the ability to drag and drop, of course, authorization. So if we wanted to take Donna's authorization level and apply it to Carlos, you can still drag and drop it over Carlos. And you may not also know that this copy authorizations budget. So if we were focused on Donna and wanted to copy Donna's authorization level to a number of people at the same time, that can also be done here. And the copy authorizations function can also be used with respect to groups. So if our AR group was like our finance group and our purchasing group, and we just wanted to start with setting it up for finance or AR or whatever, we could actually copy all those authorization levels to various other groups. People often like, I found a lot of power users like to do that, set the authorization level for one group, copy it over, and you've got 90% of what you need, and then you just need to handle your exceptions. Okay? So just to review, the authorization group features allows you to do authorizations at a group level, and it allows you to include individual users in those groups, and hopefully will add a little bit of convenience when it comes to dealing with setting up authorizations for new users, individual users, lists of users. And again, just to reiterate, users can be part of more than one authorization group. Okay. So next we're going to take a look at the hide functions functionality, and like I say, it's a new piece of functionality that allows you to remove kind of certain blanket functions, like let's say all of the units of measure functions, and essentially switch off all of the hooks in the individual areas that they occur in Business One. And we'll switch back to our trusty demo system, and I'll show you what I mean. Okay. So in this particular example, I'm going to open up the administration panel, and I'm going to go to System Initialization and General Settings. And if you've been in here before, you're probably familiar with some of the settings tabs that are possible here. But you notice now that there is another tab in 9.1 called Hide Functions. And there's a number of functions that you can hide. So this ability is only limited to these functions. I'm not sure if SAP has any plans to expand this, but certainly feel free to submit your ideas to us or to SAP, because we're happy to take feedback on whether you find this function useful and if you'd like to see it expanded. So we've got a few things that you're able to do. We can hide all functions related to budget or payment wizard, dunning, cost accounting, serial numbers and batches. So this is exposed in a number of different places, like in the production area, in the inventory management area. So this would essentially be switching that functionality off. We're going to take the example of units of measure, because it's fairly simple and I can show you very quickly. I'm going to do two things. I'm going to open up the inventory master record. We'll make our user-defined fields disappear. We'll just pick any inventory master record. I'm also going to open up a delivery document. And again, this is really just an example of the fact that unit of measure functionality occurs in different areas of Business One. And if I scroll to the side here, you can see that on the delivery document, I've got a column called unit of measure code. And on the item master, I've got a field called unit of measure group. And for anybody that uses units of measure, you know that this is how you kind of set up the template groups for your various types of unit of measure. So if I go back to my general settings screen and I disable units of measure, we're just going to click update. Oh, I'm sorry. I clicked budget, and it's not allowing me to do that because I have some budgeting things underway. But I'm just going to disable units of measure, and notice how it actually closed the two screens that I had behind because it was doing some updates. But I'm going to go back and I'm going to open my item master, and notice how now that unit of measure group functionality has disappeared. And if I click on my barcode, if anybody has used the barcoding functionality in 9.1 with units of measure on, you'll note that you have some unit of measure functionality available to you within barcodes. Now all of that functionality has been removed. If I take a look very quickly at a delivery document, and I'll just scroll to the side as we were before, that column, the unit of measure code column, it's gone. So basically what we've done by removing that functionality is we've removed any significant reference to that functional area in the entire system, which can be convenient if you don't really necessarily need or want your users to be interacting with unit of measures because they'll be adding data needlessly and they may be kind of adding things that are tough to undo, you can sort of make it disappear. So just to review, you now have the ability to switch off certain functional areas of Business One, and the functional areas are included here. We can switch off all functional areas related to production, serial numbers, MRP, units of measure, etc. Okay. So far, so good. And if anybody's got any questions, please don't hesitate to pose them in the questions dialog box of the GoToWebinar panel. Jaylene will either interrupt me or we can cover the questions at the end of the session, no problem. So moving along to our third power user functionality. So Business One now has the ability, kind of a core ability, to be able to edit the user interface of various forms. And we're going to take the inventory transfer document as our example here. I'm going to switch back over to our demo system. I'm going to open up the inventory transfer document. And you can do this with sales forms or what have you. Now, if anybody's used the inventory transfer document, you might notice that there's some fields missing here. There's some fields up here that have to do with business partner, that have to do with remarks and those kinds of things, and those fields are gone. So what I've actually been able to do is I've actually been able to change the inventory transfer request document, clean it up, change it more to my liking. Well, how did I do that? So with the document that you would like to edit open and in front of you, go to the Tools menu and go down, and you'll notice that there's an option now here that says Edit Form UI. So we're actually going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to right-click on this inventory transfer document. I'm going to restore the defaults just to see how, so you can see how I've been able to change this. So I'm going to click on Restore Default. So Business One remembers the way that the form should look, which is good. Again, never hurts to try this in your test database. Hopefully you have a test database, to try these types of changes. And making these UI edits, as we'll see kind of in a moment, we can apply these UI edits to certain users in the system and not others. So if we wanted to make this inventory transfer request cleaner and easier to use for our shipping receiving department, we could do that, and these changes wouldn't necessarily have to apply to all power users. So you may want to leave this document or this object in a kind of a complicated layout for more advanced users, but you might want to really dumb it down. And what's really common with organizations is they might say, well, you know what, I want to hide all of the fields that our shipping receiving users don't need to fill in, because really it's confusing them. We don't need the data entered into these fields, so we're going to hide them. We're going to say we never specify a numbering series, so let's hide that because it confuses people. It's extra information and they may enter something in there and then that's no good. We can also move, and bear with me here. Sorry, it's all about grabbing it in the right spot. We can also move the field where we want. So if we want to, make these fields more prominent and kind of move them over here, the from warehouse, the to warehouse, we can move them where we want. We can also make tabs disappear. So this document has an attachments tab, and what I'm going to do with this form UI edit mode open is I'm going to click on the form settings. And you notice how we have the same sort of form settings window come up that we normally do. And if you're not familiar with this form settings tab controls what you can see in some of these documents. You'll notice that there's a whole bunch of information available on the inventory transfer document that you may or may not be viewing. But notice also how now we have another tab on the form settings called UI elements, and this is available when you're in the UI edit mode. So here we've got the header of the document, which was everything up top here. We've got contents, which is this tab here, and attachments, which is this tab here. And notice how there's a visible flag by the row that says attachments. If I was to click the flag there, I can make the attachments tab disappear. We don't need attachments for our shipping receiving users. They don't need that. So just click OK and it's gone. And if I'm happy with the changes to the document, then I just click Save. And away you go. The other thing that I'll highlight too is that these changes can be applied to certain users in the system. Okay. And if I go in and I'll open another area in administration. So if I go into administration and I find the utilities area and I find UI configuration templates, here's where the templates are saved for various documents. And you can see I've got a list of my templates here. At the bottom is my inventory transfer. We can also assign certain users to this template. So maybe it's the people in our shipping receiving group that want to be assigned to this simple version of the template, and for everybody else they'll get the standard version. Okay, so the UI edit capability allows us to hide fields, allows us to move fields. If we had user-defined fields, and I don't believe that we do on this particular document, but let's just close this, and we're going to go to a document that has some user-defined fields on it, like this inventory master record. I got a UDF called roller size here. If I were to put this form into UI edit mode, I can move this. Oh, sorry. This may be a bad example, but okay. I might have to circle back on that particular thing, but there is a way that we can move this UDF to the main window, and that's similar functionality as what you're used to with a tool like Boyum B1 Up, but it is limited to really redesigning this interface. Those tools that you have like Boyum, they do add extra functionality in the sense that they can add function buttons to these windows. I think for those of you who caught the webinar session that Jerwin did on B1 Up, I think that was September or October. I thought that was a fantastic session that really showed you how the Boyum tool far exceeded what you were able to do with sort of core Business One. All right.
Bob, just before you go any further, we have a question. How can we assign a template to a super user?
How can you assign a template to the super user? That's a good question. I was doing a little bit of work with this last night. Super users by default, I believe, are assigned to the default template, but I might actually have to do some research on that and get back to the person that posed the question, because I wasn't able to figure that out. So, but I can promise that I'll follow up on that question, because it seems that super users are treated differently when it comes to these templates.
Okay.
So, really good question, actually. Obviously, I wonder if it was asked by somebody who has tried this already. Is there any more questions right now?
That's the only one so far.
Okay, so great question. So we'll promise to follow up on that. Okay, so now the last power user function that I wanted to show you today was copy and paste functionality. And I don't know how many of you might be using this right now. Obviously, sometimes the difficulty with using some of these functions is you need to think of a use case. One of the ways that we thought that this copy and paste functionality could be useful is, let's say there's a lot of companies that, they sort of do their quoting in an Excel spreadsheet because they like to be able to move things around, or they've got Excel template that they really, really like, and that sort of thing. And it might be possible to actually take what's in your Excel sheet, given given the fact that you would have item codes and quantities that would match what's in Business One, and actually copy and paste that into Business One. In today's example, we're going to see sort of a quick and dirty copy and paste from an output that came from a CAD system, so an engineering system, a computer-assisted design system, and copy that and paste it into Business One. These types of connections, this kind of copy and paste, relies on the idea that you've got some common identifiers between the system you're trying to copy from and Business One. So I'll tell you what I mean here right away. So let's say, for instance, here we've got Business One, and let's say, for instance, we've got an Excel file, a CSV file or whatnot that was exported from our CAD system, and we had a little bill of materials that was, outputted from our CAD system. And I've only got 3 items, but I'm supposing that this would be quite useful if you had 50, 100, 1,000 items that were exported, and you wanted to get this bill of materials that was designed, come about by your CAD system into Business One without creating a kind of a dedicated integration. What that's going to rely on is it's going to rely on Business One understanding what those items need to be on their side. So there has to be some level of synchronization, or maybe a better way to say it is simpatico, between the two systems. Your CAD system needs to know, some sort of item code or some kind of identifier that identifies within Business One. And in this case, we've really just said, well, that the SAP item codes are all in your CAD system. So we've got a few item codes here. So if we take this list that came from Excel that was exported from a CAD system, and we select a range and we copy it, and let's say we need to get this into a production order because we're building something. We're building a custom widget. So I'm going to open up a production order in Business One. I got a new one here. I'm going to call this production order special because we're feeding it a bill of materials, and we're going to pick our, I've got a custom widget placeholder here. So we're gonna make a custom widget, and we're gonna make it based on that bill of materials. So I've got that range of data copied already, and I'm gonna put my cursor in the item number field, and I'm going to paste it in. And you can see that it pastes in the range of values that were there. So the item codes 3, 4, and 5, and you can see that the descriptions came up. You can also see that the quantities didn't quite turn out right. It's quantity 111. So why is that? Well, it's because when we copied the data from here and we pasted it, Business One is assuming that if these 2 columns are adjacent in your, whatever you're copying from, you need to have those 2 columns adjacent in Business One. So let's try this again. Let's back up. Let's delete these 3 rows. I'll do them one by one there. That's quicker than starting a new production order. Let's open up our form settings, and let's put the plan quantity field right beside the item number field. Okay? I put my cursor back in the item number field. I'm going to click paste. Boom, boom, boom. All we really needed to do to fulfill this quick and dirty integration is we needed a unique item ID and its quantity. Business One will fill in all the rest. It knows what the description is, etc. Now, your integrations could get more sophisticated, and that sort of depends on you, but that is a really simple example of how this functionality could be used. Okay? So just to review, you can use copy and paste in a number of documents. There's a video on the Business One Academy that deals with what I just showed you here. You can use copy and paste in a number of different forms, like most of the sales documents. You've got that ability. Most of the purchasing documents you can copy and paste directly into. I've even seen, I think one of the consultants was mentioning to me the other day that they were able to copy and paste into a MRP forecast. So that's a good thing. You might be pulling numbers together for an MRP forecast in a spreadsheet, and you just wanted to copy and paste those numbers in. And the trick is typically just making sure that the data fields in the form that are in Business One are matching up to kind of what was in your source data. All right. So that is really the 4 functions that we wanted to show you today. We hope that they help. We hope that those are things that you haven't seen before, or maybe we answered some questions. And I guess before we, Jaylene's got something that she'd like to sign off with. Maybe before that, we'll give the opportunity for the audience to ask questions.
I don't have anything coming in yet, Rob. While people are kind of thinking on that, if you want to skip to the next slide, I'll just kind of draw your attention to an upcoming blog series that we have this December. We're kind of doing a 12 days of Christmas, so we've got lots of little gifts to help you use Business One more effectively. There's lots of tips and tricks, and we're throwing a few prize draws in there as well. So we just want to encourage you to subscribe to our blog to make sure that you don't miss any of those posts. So if you just go to our website at projectline.ca/blog, you can subscribe on the right-hand side there. And I don't see any questions coming in. So as always, I mean, if you have questions after this session, you can feel free to get in touch with Rob or myself and we can help you out. So I just want to say thanks to Rob for a great presentation and thanks to everyone for attending. We did record the session today, so it'll be available on our website and YouTube channel later this afternoon. We just did have one question come in here, Rob. When will these new functionalities become available?
Yeah, so these new functionalities are available right now. I believe that, just looking at the functionalities, I believe that all of these functionalities were available in 9.1 patch level 0. Sometimes SAP will release functionalities in the later patch level, but anybody who's running the most recent version of 9.1, I believe we're at patch level 11 or close to, or certainly patch level 8 or 9. I think the system I was demoing in was Business One HANA 9.1 patch level 9. So those functionalities are available now. Certainly, if you're running an earlier patch level of 9.1, we can let you know. I'm pretty sure all 4 of these were in the patch level 0 release, but we can certainly check on that for you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so if there's no more questions, I'll just make a note that when the session ends today, you're going to see a short survey come up in your browser window. We really encourage you to fill that out and let us know how we did today and how we can improve the webinars so that they'll be better for you and give you guys what you need. So we really appreciate that feedback. Thanks again, everyone, for attending today, and we hope to see you again next month.